sitting there admiring our new
we
intro.
just dropped the mic on our intro. Don't mind us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Riders Up, the podcast. My name is Shayna.
And I'm Autry.
And we have a huge announcement.
As you can tell,
we are officially with America's Best Racing, which we're super excited and grateful for. So we'll be doing a bit more video content now in 2021, as well as just, we don't even know. Sky's the limit. We're taking over for America's Best Racing. Yes, we have to link our new merch. There's a link to our Etsy website on our Instagram, Facebook, all of those things. And you should support us with some awesome merch.
YourHackGuy.com.
Yes.
He made it.
So we're going to get into our episode here. We're going to do a quick week recap. Just, I don't know, we're trying to get back on our grind here and have it a little more organized than we've been for the last
there's
4 months.
A binder.
I just felt like it was time.
Instead, I can't even get it out of the drawer. There once was this ratchet thing of paper. So now we actually have a binder.
Yeah, so we're moving up in the world. So we're going to do like our quick racing highlights like we used to. And we're officially on the road to the Kentucky Derby. So we had a fun Kentucky Derby countdown last year and followed it. Kicked off the weekend out at Santa Anita with a huge weekend of racing there.
And it went really well.
It did. It was a great opening weekend. They used their new turf course, which was really exciting. And to no one's surprise, Bob Baffert won the Grade 3 Sham, same race he won last year with Authentic. This year it was with Life is Good, who everyone is saying is now like the second coming, as it goes.
Yeah. Baffert has a horse freak at Santa Anita, and it's the second coming.
Neck. Like, okay. So we had that. And then honestly, a highlight of the weekend, let's talk about Calypso.
Oh, wow.
And the Grade 2 Santa Ynez. Like, shout out to Brody's Cause.
Yeah, Brody's Cause. I love Big Brody. He's just the best.
So that filly came out and won, which was super exciting. She dominated in that spot. And
4-star sales grad.
Yeah.
Ashley Bradshaw.
Yeah.
Who's been on the podcast before. So
yeah. So very exciting. And it's just cool to see a horse like that win. I mean, such a modest, stallion and whatnot. So super exciting there. And then there's the low points of the week. It's
an entire list of horses that retired.
Like every horse that we were looking forward to this year retired. Tis the Law, who in a lot of people's eyes were, in contention for a Horse of the Year awards. I mean, he had an insane campaign. He retired this week. Is at Ashford now. 1,000 Words, who was another Derby prospect. He's out, retired. And then Mucho Gusto, they just announced, is not going to be running in the Pegasus. He had a soft tissue injury. And so now he's out.
But we do have a great headline. We like to highlight the best headlines from the news recently. And this is preferably my favorite.
So we have two that are kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's an irony. The two headlines.
Oh, yeah. It is kind of irony. So how do you say his name? Of course.
Jockey McMahon.
Oh, that's his Jockey.
I spelled it wrong.
I thought that was his first name. I was like, Jocelyn. Nope. Jockey McMahon arrested for attempted murder in Louisiana. And
Jesus' team fires bullet in Pegasus prep. Woo! McMahon fired bullets into a car next to him, which is why.
The irony.
So I thought that was funny. But
Jockey wrong.
I was typing it quickly. Anyway, so that's a lot to look forward to. We have some more racing coming up that we're going to be following. And then, of course, Pegasus World Cup is in just 2 weeks. So super excited about that. We're going to take a quick moment to pause here and acknowledge our partner for this episode. It is Lexington Equine Laundry, which my horse is like the nastiest, muddiest creature. Like he just lives in the mud. So I visit them a lot. Lexington's first full-service equine laundry. They offer wash, repair, and waterproofing services for your blankets, for any of your stuff, saddle, whatever, as well as pickup and delivery options. Everything is done in-house. They never ship your blankets out to someone else. In fact, they actually fold, individually package, and label the blankets for you, which makes it super easy.
COVID friendly
to pick up. It makes it organized and nice and easy. They're located at 1532 North Limestone in Lexington, Kentucky. Notable clients include Ashford, Windstar, TaylorMade, Lanes End, Calumet, Blackwood, Margot, and Shayna Tiller. Probably their largest client at this point. You can find them on all social media platforms or contact them at 859-270-8804. Oh. And we look like our guest is in the green room. That's what Dan told us.
We're learning language. Yeah.
We're super excited about our guest today. We have Graham Motion joining us here. Graham is a multiple Grade 1 winning and Kentucky Derby winning trainer. I feel like everyone just admires him. He's like one of the good guys in racing.
Yeah.
So welcome on, Graham. How are you?
Good. A few technical difficulties, but I'm good to go now.
Oh, good. Well, you're our first video guest, so thank you so much.
Good. I'm flattered.
Wonderful. Well, originally from Cambridge, England, Graham was born into the sport with his dad being a top bloodstock agent and his mother an amateur rider. He has had an incredible career and is credited as one of the good guys in racing. As I just said, he's trained top horses, Better Talk Now, Animal Kingdom, Main Sequence, Irish War Cry, Miss Temple City, and last year's exciting Breeders' Cup winner, Sharing. We'll talk to Graham today about his journey in racing, some of his favorite moments from his career, and some of the big changes that are coming in 21, which I know you have lots of opinions on. So we're excited to hear
Your Twitter's tell
Oh.
Well, and one big we always do a headline of the week, and one big thing that came out this week was the announcement of Jonathan Shepherd retiring. And we know you spent a lot of time with him. What was that kind of like for you to see? And
Yeah, I was a little surprised, to be honest. So it's a little bittersweet. Jonathan pretty much taught me everything I know going into the business. I always considered him to be my 5 years of college, if you like. I didn't go to college, so that was kind of my equivalent. I think my dad thought that when I went to work for Jonathan, I'd probably never want to train another horse in my life after a couple of winters in Pennsylvania, but I was still there 5 years later. So, look, it's bittersweet to see him retire, but he went out after winning the steeplechase title this year. So what a great time to do it.
definitely. Great. Well, back to you a little bit. Obviously, you just said, you grew up in a racing family. What was your childhood like with your dad being a top bloodstock agent and your mom a rider herself?
Yeah, so my mom and dad had a stud farm. We were just outside Newmarket in a village called Herringswell, hence the name of my stable. Jonathan Shepherd, he called his stable Ashwell Stable, which is the village he was born in. So I kind of stole his idea, I guess. Herringswell's a little village just outside Newmarket. So I was always around horses. I didn't really ride a great deal as a kid, but I was fascinated by racing. I mean, I grew up watching Lester Piggott, Steve Corson, Henry Cecil. Back then you could only really watch racing on Saturdays in England. That was a big deal to be able to sit down and watch the races on TV. So, but that really got me hooked.
Definitely. And your family came to America when you were just 16, I believe. And what was it like transferring from, England to here?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I mean, I'd been in school, obviously. I came over here and did my last 3 years of high school over here. And again, I wasn't necessarily set on this is what I was going to do, but I was always very fascinated by racing.
And when did you, just that was what you were going to do with your career?
Sorry, say it one more time.
When did you kind of realize that's what you wanted to do with your career, when it was just, the business? Yeah,
so I guess I was always fascinated by racing, but I'd never really worked in a racing stable. So I went away for a year to Europe right after I left high school. And, I spent a lot of time on a horse farm, but I found the horse farm fairly mundane. It was a little bit sort of sitting around the afternoon, waiting for it to turn 4 o'clock. And that just wasn't really my thing, So they had some 2-year-olds on the farm, and I just got more and more interested in the training. And I'd ridden enough to be able to get on a horse and take them on the gallops and stuff. And that just really hooked me. So when I came back, that's when I went to work for Jonathan. And then it was kind of, I guess the rest is history, as they say.
And obviously, he's a Hall of Fame trainer. He's won every prolific race that you can win, really, in steeplechase. Are there horses that stand out to you from your time with him?
Yeah, I mean, look, the biggest horse for me was Flatterer. He was the Eclipse Award winner, 3 or 4 times. I don't know how it came about, but I kind of, we didn't have set horses we took care of at Jonathan's, but we kind of worked all day. And at the end of the day, he was always the horse that I would take care of. I would do him up and put his arm. Still see me?
Yeah.
So we're back again. That's the trouble with using your phone on these things. So I got very attached to him, and it ended up that I did all the traveling with him, which was amazing. We went to the Colonial Cup for several years, and then I took him to England for Cheltenham for the Champion Hurdle, and then I took him to France for their equivalent of the Champion Hurdle. So needless to say, I traveled with him a lot. I got really attached to him. It was just an amazing experience. You can't duplicate those experiences. And even though I'd grown up in racing, I'd never been to Cheltenham for the Champion Hurdle. So that alone, I felt like a real tourist going over to, even though it was my country of origin, I felt like a real tourist traveling over there with Flatterer.
And I did the Irish National Stud course, and I hadn't really heard, I mean, you hear of Cheltenham, but you don't really understand as an American living here what that festival is for the people. You know, I mean, the entire country shuts down and it feels like everyone's sitting and watching on their TV. Everyone's gambling on the races. What was the energy like to be there yourself?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, first of all, so we stayed at John Francome's yard, who's a famous steeplechase jockey you probably heard of. At that time, he was the top jockey. He was like Steve Cawthon, I guess, on the flat, and he had just retired. So we stayed in his yard. So for me, it was such a thrill just to meet him, let alone stay in his. I stayed in his house, in his yard. That was a real big deal for me. And then, going to Cheltenham was extraordinary. I mean, unless you've been there, you really can't quite get your head around what it's like. And I remember particularly, I mean, Flatterer ran amazing. Unfortunately, he ran against See You Then. It was his third year in a row winning the race, See You Then. So he was a legend himself. And I remember the reception when we walked back into the unsaddling enclosure, which was such a big deal over there. Everybody gathers around, and it was, they treat us like we won the race. It's something I'll never forget.
How cool is that? And so after your time with Jonathan, where did you go? Can you hear me?
So after my time with Jonathan, I then went back to Europe. I spent a year in Europe, actually working for Jonathan Pease, who had some horses for Mr. Strawbridge at the time. And I spent a season there at Jonathan's. I actually met my wife there. She was working for Alain Roy Dupré. And then when we came back, I started back at Bowie, just exercise riding. And then I eventually went to work for Bernie Bond, who was kind of a legend in Maryland with 2-year-olds.
And Bowie, it was like an iconic track.
Wasn't that your dad's favorite
my whole
track?
family's from Bowie.
Yeah.
So, and my dad has like the fondest memories of, they'd leave school early so that they could get there. And they got in for free after a certain time each day. So that's when they would leave school. And the train track was still there. And I think they had some rumors that they were going to open it back up or something. I don't know if that.
Yeah, there was some talk of it. It was one of the projects that they were thinking about. But Bowie's kind of legendary. It's almost got a little bit of a cult following over there. There was a select group that trained there and never left.
Yeah, definitely. And when did you go on and open your own stable?
So I worked for Bernie for at least 3 years, and when he retired, because of health reasons, a couple of the owners there kept the horses with me, and one of the requirements was they wanted me to be stabled at Laurel, not at Pimlico, which was fine by me because Pimlico is not the greatest backstretch. So I moved to Laurel. It was on Valentine's. I moved to Laurel on Valentine's Day. I remember that really clearly. And actually, my previous boss, Bernie, he actually died the morning that I moved to Laurel, which was very. There was something very. It was like it was meant to be, Anyway, and then I set up on my own and stayed at Laurel for a long time before we eventually moved to Delaware and to Fair Hill.
And I think it's cool too that you're at Fair Hill because Jonathan's farm in Pennsylvania, it's very much, these rolling open gallops and all. Do you use the same kind of training philosophy as you did with him at Fair Hill?
Yeah, I think I try to emulate a lot of what he did, such as turning horses out before they train. That's something we can do at Fair Hill. We don't always take horses to the racetrack. We have that option at Fair Hill where we can take them in the fields out back or take them on hacks through the woods. So we have a lot of different options. So yes, it enables me to be able to do things somewhat like Jonathan did. And that's, I guess it's not a coincidence that I've trained a lot of turf horses for that reason, because that's kind of where I learned, that's where I learned the game, was watching Jonathan train his turf horses.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you've had like a phenomenal group of horses, over the years. Are there, between Better Talk Now, Main Sequence, what was it like training those kinds of horses? And do you have any highlights?
Yeah, I mean, Better Talk Now is my first highlight. I mean, he was the horse that kind of put me on the map when he won the Breeders' Cup. I went to the Breeders' Cup that year with 3 horses, I think, with Filmmaker, Danceaway Capote. We'd kind of struck out, but they all run really well. Filmmaker just got beat by Ouija board that day, and we went to the paddock with Better Talk Now, and he was 27-1. So I was kind of, at that point, I was kind of relaxed, even though it was my first Breeders' Cup. I was like, he's doing great. We'll see what happens. And sure enough, he wins. So that's a day I'll never forget. Ramon rode him. It was a big deal. It was as big a deal for Ramon probably as it was for me at the time. But those races really stand out. Filmmaker was an exceptional mare. I mean, she came around at a tough time because she had to run against Ouija board every year, and was unlucky not to win a Breeders' Cup herself. Shared account, obviously winning the Breeders' Cup. Main sequence. The Breeders' Cup races, they kind of stand out. And of course, Animal Kingdom, I never dreamt I would win a Kentucky Derby, that's for sure.
And the Kentucky Derby is an iconic race. Everyone wants to win it, whether I think you're in America or overseas. What was that day like for you? Do you remember it as vividly as it was then?
Oh, yeah. No, I do. Again, we were 20-1. It wasn't a great deal of pressure. I'd run in the Derby before without much success. And everybody always said what a great experience it was. And I honestly hadn't had great experiences up to that point. No, I remember it so clearly. I remember walking over. I remember the whole week, the build up. I was a little green at Churchill Downs. I remember we breezed him at Churchill the Sunday before, and John Panigat was working with me at the time, who you may know, who's now Javier Castellano's agent.
Saratoga Special,
and I remember we sent Robbie, Saratoga Special, exactly. So I remember giving Robbie a leg up to go breeze Animal Kingdom, and we went round to the front side, and we could not get in the grandstand to watch Animal Kingdom breeze. We were running up and down the grandstand trying to figure out how to get in. Little did we know as we should have gone through the infield if we'd known our way around. Anyway, we eventually found a door to get into Churchill, and we just got up into the grandstand to watch him breeze, and he breezed great. I remember afterwards hearing Baffert saying, that's the horse to beat. And I was like, wow, if he feels that, that's pretty cool. So I knew at that point we were serious. And then it was a weird week because Robbie got hurt. And Johnny, who was riding the favorite that year of Todd's, he scratched late. And ended up riding Animal Kingdom. So the whole thing was just a very odd week, odd lead up, and he ran amazing. I remember watching the race, and every time I'd run a horse in the race before, I always felt like when we got to the 3/8 pole, we were in trouble. And this time, we were at the 3/8 pole, and I thought Animal Kingdom was really cruising, and he looked really good. And I was like, oh boy, we could really do something here. It was amazing.
Do you ever gamble in your own horses?
Say that one more time, sorry.
Do you ever gamble on any of your own horses? You had some pretty good odds.
Do I ever get it?
So, huh?
Did you? I don't know why we got a weird line there. Did you say, do I ever get on my own horses?
Yeah. Do you gamble any of your own horses?
Oh, do I gamble?
Gamble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a weird line. So did you say, did I ever bet on my own horses?
Yes.
Very, very, very rarely, to be honest. I'm not really a gambling person. I mean, occasionally if I got a horse who's a big price, who I think I like, and I'm surprised he's a big price, I might have a bet, but not, pretty small stuff.
As soon as I start gambling, I start losing. So I feel like I just sit there and root on my own. Yeah. And if they win, I just give myself a pat on the back and I'm happy. Because if I bet on them, they'll lose. And then another horse that I feel like you've had, I don't know, one of my favorite horses is Miss Temple City. Like how she's just so cool. And I saw her train at Fairhill, and she's just such I don't know. Every time I saw her go out, I feel like she just worked so hard and she was always focused. And what was it like campaigning a mare like that?
Yeah, and she really did things that I hadn't done before. She beat the boys at Keeneland. Mm-hmm. We went back to Ascot with her after Animal Kingdom, which, again, my experience with Animal Kingdom going to Ascot wasn't a great experience. I I found it was a bit of a learning curve having him over there. So when I went back with Miss Temple City, I felt that I had a better handle on what to do. So, she really took me to some great places. And beating the boys at Keeneland, I think she's probably the only filly to beat the boys in that race in the fall at Keeneland. Because, you don't really need to run against the boys. I just didn't want to run against Mark Cassie's filly. I can't remember any horses' names tonight. It's been a long day, but no, she really took me to some great places, Miss Temple City. She was very special.
Definitely. And obviously you're a super exciting filly on your roster right now and sharing, and how special it must be too, given her damn shared account being a Breeders' Cup winner for you. She was purchased for, I think, like $350,000 by Eclipse, and now is in training, one Breeders' Cup juvenile. How has she progressed through your training, and what do you have planned for her this year?
Yeah, I mean, she always did things really easily. I remember when Aaron Wellman bought her from Eclipse, I went up to him and I said, Aaron, she is a Maryland bred. She probably should come to Fair Hill. And he's like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. So, I was pretty excited that he was considering sending it to me. And she's just been such a pro. I mean, Shared Account was one of my favorite mares. She was really classy, really kind filly to be around. And Sharing is very similar, same disposition. So she'd always been pretty precocious as a 2-year-old. I always thought she was one of our better 2-year-olds. And, training for Aaron and Anthony, I feel like we've always pretty much made the right decisions by her. And I think that's why her record is so good. We probably added one more race on this year when we went out to California the second time. That wasn't necessarily something we'd planned to do, but we felt she'd had a pretty light year racing wise. So even though she was third the other day and fourth in the Matriarch, I really think those were pretty strong efforts, especially in the Matriarch against older fillies. So having said all that, she shipped back to Florida, and we sent her out to Stoner Street this morning, and she'll have the rest of the month off. She'll have a little break with Ian Brennan there, and, hopefully come back, around Derby Day, I guess. She could show up at Keeneland. She could show up on Derby Day in the mile race there. But I'm really excited about having back next year.
Yeah, I would be as well. And there's a lot of new changes going on in 2021. Your tweet, I have to read the tweet. He tweeted last week in regards to the new lasix regulations, explaining the new 2021 lasix rules to an owner. Horses that couldn't run on lasix last year now can, but horses that could run on lasix last year now can't run in stakes on lasix. Most states will not allow lasix in stakes, but some states have tracks that will and others that won't. What is it like being a trainer?
I cannot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just don't think people realize how complicated this medication stuff is. Every time, we train at Fair Hill, so most weekends I'll run at 4 or 5 different states, often out of Fair Hill, and they often have different medication rules. So it just makes life so complicated. And this lasix issue, I mean, I knew, I've been a proponent of doing away with lasix for various reasons. I just, I like running horses on lasix, but I feel like we've come to a time in our industry when we shouldn't be running on medication. I just think it's the way it's got to be. Mm-hmm. So I knew there were going to be new lasix rules this year. I did not know on January the 1st that we were not going to be allowed to run on lasix. And I think everybody was surprised by that. And I was so shocked that we didn't know.
Why is that something people are surprised? Like, why is this not clairvoyant in the process?
It should have been something that it should not have been a surprise. I had a horse to run at Santa Anita, and I did not know on January the 1st that I would not be allowed to run that horse on lasix. And I'm not complaining about not being able to run on lasix. Just the fact that nobody knew is amazing to me.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, in Florida, we are not going to be allowed to run on stakes at Gulfstream, but at Tampa, we are going to be allowed to run on lasix. So it's just incredibly confusing. And the sooner we get this together, the sooner we get the Horse Racing Integrity Act up and running, I think this is all going to improve, I hope.
Definitely. And
I've said my piece.
Right. Well, you mentioned the Horse Racing Integrity Act. I was going to ask you a bit about that as well. There seems to be a lot of confusion and people don't really understand what it is going to be. Could you explain it in your own words, what you see it forming into?
I could try. I mean,
your interpretation.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is that we're going to have basically national policies. I don't understand all the ins and outs of it, but my hope is that we're going to have national policies that we're all going to have to abide by, and we're all going to have to maintain certain standards. We're all going to be penalized the same way. And I really hope it's going to eliminate some of the confusion and, eliminate some of the medication issues that we have in this country, and eliminate people who take advantage of the medication rules.
Definitely. And another thing I look forward to is, I mean, we've had jockeys and owners and people on, they talk about how difficult it is with licensing. And I'm sure you have that issue too with running horses all over the place. Like these jockeys have to pay so many different things and jump through all these hoops, as well as owners, just to run in different states. And it's just, I don't know, the whole thing just seems so confusing.
Particularly for my European or my international owners, I think they are always shocked how complicated it is. And I honestly do believe it puts some of them off. And I think that's a real shame. I mean, one other thing that I just got to say is the whip rules. I mean, they are so confusing now. Trevor McCarthy rode a horse for me on Preakness weekend last year, which was late in the fall. And he came back and said, I just wish I could have hit the horse one more time. I was like, what do you mean you wish you could have hit the horse one more time? He said, well, that's the rule. We can only hit them 5 times. I had no idea that was the rule. I mean, that's how confusing this is. And now we have rules in place at Santa Anita. We have rules in place at Santa Anita, but not at Gulfstream that I'm aware of. So visually, I think for a spectator who's now become used to seeing jockeys not use a stick much at Santa Anita, then all of a sudden that they watch Florida, Gulfstream, and a jockey can use a stick as much as he wants. I just think it's such a bad perception for our industry for people to see that.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Both of our families aren't in horse racing. And so it's really interesting, seeing these big headlines and all these things come out and hearing their perspective, because they are the public, and that everyone agrees. They're like, why do they hit the horses so much? Why do they, and it doesn't make any sense. So I think that just having some type of uniformity will make it all better, but until then, 2022.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we need uniformity so badly.
Definitely. Well, we're going to wrap up our episode with the game, as we always do. So this is a fun one, Graham. Yeah. We're going to pick your brain a little bit. So we're calling this Racing Around the World. Since you've been to so many different tracks, thought it would be perfect. So we're going to kick it off. You want to go with the first one?
Sure. First question is, what is your favorite track that you've ever attended?
Look, I mean, Ascot is spectacular. To go to Ascot, it's a dream.
Yeah, I want to go to Ascot, but I want to have the money that I can spend to go to Ascot.
Make it fun,
But I mean, as far as my my favorite track in America, Santa Anita is beautiful. There's nothing that compares to Santa Anita.
Definitely. And what is a track that you have not attended that is on the top of your bucket list?
In the States, I've never been to Oaklawn, which I guess because they don't have turf racing, but I always hear what a great track it is, and I've never been there.
So we're going. We've decided. I'm right there with you. I've just heard it has so much charm in the town, and it's kind of like another version of Saratoga. And so Autry and I are planning our way there, hopefully this year.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. I need to find a horse to run there.
Oh, I'm sure you can find one.
So out of all the tracks that you've been to, what track has had the best fans?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, it's hard to get away from like the crowd at Ascot. And, thinking about crowds, we haven't had crowds for so long that it's hard to remember what it's like having a crowd. But, I think, again, the crowds at Ascot for that week, for that festival are really enthusiastic. But, the Derby Day is amazing. Keeneland, Saratoga. I mean, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm. And what is your favorite little, like, smaller track that maybe wouldn't be on the big circuit that you like going to?
Probably Tampa. Tampa's a really quaint track. It always reminds you of like a little European track. It's got a great ambience. It's a pretty track. It's warm.
Yeah, it's nice. I've been to that one. What is your favorite big track? You said you like Santa Anita, but what's your all-time favorite?
Yeah, probably Santa Anita.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And what track do you think has the best food or best entertainment?
It'd have to be Saratoga.
I agree.
Yeah. And then what track has the best race day experience, in your opinion?
Keeneland.
Yes, definitely. I
You
feel
know,
like
they really take great care of you at Keeneland, and it's a great ambiance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you've had a lot of wins in your career. What is one that sticks out to you maybe as your proudest moment?
I think, and I always worry about saying this because I know how revered the Derby is, but you know, the Derby, I felt like I got lucky because I had such a good horse, and you know, it wasn't necessarily anything we did to get him there. I just feel like the horse was that good. But the Dubai World Cup, you know, was such a undertaking to get him there. It was 2 years later. He'd gotten through an injury. You know, to travel to Dubai with the horse and have him show up in that kind of form. I mean, I just remember that week I was on pins and needles because he was in such good form. I felt like he was ready to explode any day. So I just felt like we really had him right that day, and that was really gratifying.
Okay, then the next one is, what do you think is the hardest race in the world to win?
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, probably the Derby, because there's so much luck involved in getting to the Derby. I mean, you've just got to have the stars aligned to get there. You got one shot as a 3-year-old, so probably the Kentucky Derby.
Definitely. And what is one race that you'd like to win that you have not yet?
I mean, I'd like to win a race in Europe. I guess that's a bucket list for me. You know, having grown up in Europe, that's what got me caught on in racing. And I'd love to go to Europe and win a race. We've been trying.
Definitely.
And then last one before our big question that we ask everybody. Who was your favorite horse growing up?
Making me nervous now.
This one's easy, but the last one we ask everyone. So this one is, who is your favorite horse growing up? And then who's your favorite horse now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess growing up as a kid, you know, steeplechasing was so big in England. So a horse like Red Rum kind of really caught my attention. He won the Grand National, I think 2 or 3 times, I should know. But then in the States, I think a horse that really captured me was Tisnow. I think coming back and winning the Breeders' Cup 2 years in a row, he was just a horse that I just thought he was such a cool horse, Tisnow.
Tisnow's Breeders' Cup is like one of the most amazing races. I think
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And this is our biggie.
Yeah.
If you were the czar of racing, what is one thing you would change tomorrow?
Just having a governing body. I mean, we need a governing body in racing so badly.
Definitely. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much, Graham. We're going to take one moment to thank our sponsor.
Thank you to your hat guy. He made this right here. He is the go-to guy in all of racing for all things apparel. You can get winter hats, you can get jackets, vests, masks for the sale if you need them, any of that. He's based in Lexington, Kentucky area. He can drop it off to your barn, to your consignment, to your farm, to the track, whatever you need. Yourhatguy.com, the one and only.
Kyle Goebel.
And
thank you so much to America's Best Racing for hosting us. And Graham, thank you so much for your time and best of luck with your runners this week.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, not at all. That was fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. Thanks so much. We don't know how to end it, so we're just going to have to wait for Dan.